Ladies and gentlemen, we've got him. The Warhammer community lead editor that was the primary topic of a video I did just last week covering his heinous comments about the murder of Charlie Kirk has, it appears, been suspended by Games Workshop. This of course happened last week too, but I wanted to see if there were any further announcements made during the tail end of the week and or on Monday this week before doing an update video. As far as I've been able to see, Games Workshop has not made any further announcements beyond the communication that they've had in a response to our email campaign. So I figured it was about time to give a bit of an update as to what everything means in GW's email and where we stand now. So, if you did your part, you will in all due likelihood have received an email that looks pretty much exactly like this, as Games Workshop has sat down and created a formula letter response to our complaints. This alone shows that they were taking things quite seriously, as normally GW would simply just bunker down and ignore everything. And I remind you as well, the initial GW plan here was to do exactly that, to ignore it all and hope that it all went away. So the fact that we have received a response at all is a very clear indication that the thousands of emails that all of you guys sent, and thank you very much for that, has had an effect. So let's have a look at this, shall we? Thank you for taking the time to bring this to our attention. We are sorry that one of our employees has behaved in this manner. While we respect everyone's right to a personal opinion, we'd like to be clear that we do not support Tom's actions. This is also then the final confirmation that indeed Tom Mendelsohn is a GW employee. He did say these things as a Games Workshop employee, and he has been identified within the company, and very, very quickly, I might add, as well. And as I've been told also that this guy has quite the reputation within the company as a troublemaker and as a political shit stirrer, this also seems to kind of confirm that too. We are taking this very seriously, the email continues. Tom has been suspended while we work to further address the matter in line with our internal policies and legal duties. We're sure you'll appreciate that any investigation of this nature is confidential, and we are therefore legally unable to disclose any further information. And while we appreciate this can ring hollow, please know that we are working to ensure any outcome is proportional to the impact of Tom's actions. This is where things get a little bit wishy-washy. As far as I can tell from a couple of sources within GW, Tom has been suspended. But that does not necessarily mean that GW's plan of ignoring all of this is gone. I haven't heard any more about the deliberations of GW's leadership, mind you, and in Games Workshop's defense here, a suspension would be the natural course, in fact the virtually unavoidable course. As GW is of course a British company, they are bound by a whole host of legal restrictions when it comes to firing someone. You are, in Europe in general, literally not allowed to fire someone unless you can demonstrate sufficient reason for doing so. And this almost universally requires some form of lengthy investigation on behalf of the employing party. The only exceptions would be, gross firings, which is, well, to be fired immediately like that, you'd basically have to show up at your place of employment with a bat and start beating people with it, so very unlikely. There are ways you can fire people, either if they can't do their job, which might be a reason here, as this man has obviously lost all trust of the Warhammer community, and indeed his continued participation with the Warhammer community would probably be considered an enormous red flag by a significant portion of the customer base. And he can also be fired for things like bringing the company into ill repute, in essence. But GW does have to, legally speaking, justify all of this. They do have to investigate it. So the fact that he has been suspended alone does not mean that they are going to completely ignore this, but it also could. As for proportional to the impact of Tom's actions, that is an interesting one, because from what we apparently know now, Tom was a leading element behind a lot of the Warhammer community's more political aspects of the last few years. He was the person who doubled down on female custodies and announced that there had always been female custodies. He was behind the Imperium is driven by hate article, and had apparently been fomenting quite a lot of such nonsense in the GW offices. This may be an indicator that they are looking for a dismissal, or it may also be that they are looking to ignore it yet again. At the moment, I don't know whether it is the first or the latter. They go on to say, "We greatly value the passion and commitment you have for the Warhammer hobby. The trust and confidence of our community are extremely important to us, and we will continue working to ensure Warhammer remains a space defined by creativity, inclusivity, and respect." The addition of inclusivity there is perhaps to some a red flag, but it's simply just internal Games Workshop lingo at this point. As for the respect for the community, well, we know that's probably a load of hot air at this point, as GW has been pushing actively to replace the majority of their fans as quickly as they can. But with their huge Amazon collaboration right around the corner, probably the single biggest chance GW has ever had of properly, thoroughly hitting the big leagues, they are going to be rather nervous about any stink of scandal hanging over their company. And this is a rather big scandal right here. So, now that we know that, what, if any, further action will be required of all of us? Well, that's where the difficult part comes in. As it is literally impossible for GW to let this person go without an investigation, it is very difficult to continue to try to pressure them at the moment, and probably counterproductive. I do, however, want an official announcement on this, and this is where the problem comes in. This movement had a tremendous amount of initial momentum, as often these things do, which will inevitably peter off after time, so simply asking everybody to chill for a couple of weeks and see if anything comes of it isn't really a great strategy either. But in essence, right now, the only thing that would truly mollify this, in my opinion, is an official statement. If Games Workshop does not come out and say, on the Warhammer community site, on their Twitter, wherever, in some form of public capacity, that they distance themselves from these complaints, and that the individual in question has been let go, then I am going to continue to assume that he is probably still employed at Games Workshop, and will happily attribute any further political commentary that the company involves itself in to Tom Mendelsohn and his brand of politics. That is kind of the complicated position we are in right now, but if that ends up somewhat unfairly victimizing the corporation, well, tough luck, I do suppose. But I don't want this to put a damper on the victory that has been had here either, because normally, again, GW would simply have ignored any such complaints. The fact that we managed to mobilize a large enough volume of emails to bring this to Games Workshop attention and receive an actually considered response in and of itself is quite enormous, and I do believe this is the first time that Games Workshop has responded to virtually any external outcry on a matter of politics that hasn't been in the left wing's favour. This is a victory. This is absolutely a significant moment of influence upon Games Workshop. The only question is whether or not it is real or if it is all a smokescreen. And the latter is difficult to determine for now, but I would certainly argue that you shouldn't be giving GW the benefit of the doubt just yet. So, if there is an announcement, I will absolutely cover it, and feel free to send it to me if it does appear. If there is no official announcement, I would simply continue to assume that our good friend the Communist is still employed at GW and is still writing their articles for them. It's not as good as it could have been, and it's not as good as it should have been, but it's probably the best we're going to get at the moment. You let me know how you feel about all of this down in the comment section below as well. And until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you very much for watching, and I do hope to see you all again soon. Till then, have a good day.